Hi, I'm Norie Koelbel from the Great Northern Book Company, and I'm the one that's going to be sending you your books for your book fair. And I am going to be sending you a lot of neat books, but I'm going to show you a few of them today so that hopefully you'll get some ideas of things that you want. Now, if you have seen this video in past years, you know that I've always had just paperback books in my video. But this year I do want to start out with one very special hardcover, and it's called Falling Up by Shel Silverstein. Now, a lot of you remember the poetry in Shel Silverstein's other books, Light in the Attic and Where the Sidewalk Ends. It's been probably somewhere around 10 to 14 years since we've received a new poetry book from Shel Silverstein, so I was kind of anxious to see if his poetry was just as fun as it was in the past, and I think it is. I want to read you a short poem today called Snowball. It says, I made myself a snowball as perfect as could be. I thought I'd keep it as a pet and let it sleep with me. I made it some pajamas and a pillow for its head. Then last night it ran away, but first it wet the bed. Isn't that cute? And all of them are just really cute. Now, I'll be sending you in a lot of these, what we call picture books. This is a new one out in paperback this year called, obviously, Bear. And this is written by and illustrated by the Caldecott-winning author of Owl Moon. So if the pictures look a little familiar, maybe that's why. I like this book a lot. It's a story of a little bear who wakes up one day and he's always woken up next to his mother, but this time she wasn't there, and you feel how lonely he is as he looks for his mom, and he of course is very hungry, and as he tries to eat, things happen to him, like in this case a lemming bit his nose. Another time he was chased away by a mother moose, and in another instance, he was treed by a bigger bear. Now, this poor bear is really getting hungry. He didn't dare come out of that tree that night because he was afraid the big bear would get him. So he slept in the tree, and that morning he fell down this cliff and into the water. Well, in the water were salmon, and so he was going to get a salmon because by this time he was very hungry. And no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch a salmon. And he was getting desperate. Look at it, he's even got his nose under the water here. Still no salmon. Finally, he figures out, he's desperate, he's really desperate now, and he figures out how to do it. So what he did, he stayed in that area and ate salmon for a long time, even chasing away the eagles that came after the salmon. Well, he grew bigger and bigger until the time when he could chase away other bears from where he was. And finally, after eating a lot of berries, after he had the berries, he was fat enough to go into hibernation. So this is a story of learning how to become independent, like this bear did. Neat story. Then there will be a number of these beginning readers in your book fair books, and this is one that's been very popular, Pal the Pony. This takes place on Star Ranch, and everybody is getting ready for the rodeo, but little Pal is so small that he can't do anything, and he tries to imitate what the older and the bigger horses do, and he's afraid that he will not be able to have anything to do with this rodeo, and he's very sad. But then something happens, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, and Pal can participate in the rodeo. Okay, the silly story of Goldilocks and the Three Squares. I love this book. I'm going to read you a little bit about it because it will tell you a little bit about what this is about. This is a story of a girl named Goldilocks. She isn't the Goldilocks you know from the fairy tale. The fairy tale Goldilocks lived long ago, once upon a time. The fairy tale Goldilocks is the great-great-grandmother of our Goldilocks. Our Goldilocks lives right now. She's not at all like her great-great-grandmother, or is she? One day, our Goldilocks was walking in the woods. She saw a pretty house in the shape of a pentagon. It had 5 sides. Goldilocks was hungry and tired, so she went into the house. It was stupid to walk in a stranger's house like that, but that's what girls named Goldilocks seem to do. Okay, now she's hungry and she's tired, and this follows the Goldilocks story, and sure enough, she falls asleep, and she is awakened by the 3 squares when they came home. Now, what does she do when she meets up with the 3 squares? Do you think I'm going to tell you? No. Okay. Hoop stars. For all of you boys and girls who love basketball, you're going to like this book, because this book is about 4 different stars: Shaquille O'Neal, David Robinson, Charles Barkley, and Hakeem Olajuwon. And you can learn all about them. I think all of them were in the Olympics. Yes, they were, weren't they? In fact, I remember right after Shaquille O'Neal got that great big contract with Los Angeles, I kept on thinking, nobody is worth that kind of money. But then I saw him in the Olympics, and he had that great big goofy smile on his face, and you can't help but love the guy, even though he's paid too much. Then I know that you love mysteries. Everybody likes a good mystery. This book is about Alcatraz. Now, maybe some of you are familiar with Alcatraz. This was built, this is a prison that is by San Francisco, in the bay off San Francisco. And it was built to house the worst criminals that were in existence in the 1930s. And you just could not escape from Alcatraz, even no matter how hard you tried. And this is the story, this is a picture of what Alcatraz looks like. And this is the story of 3 men who did escape from Alcatraz. Now, the whole question is, the big question in this case is, did they survive or did they not survive? After they crossed very ingeniously in this boat, they were never seen from again. But their bodies never washed up on shore. So the question is, did they survive or did they not? Now, they worked for months trying to figure out and work on this escape. And I thought as I was reading this, you know, if they had worked this hard doing honest work, they never would have ended up in Alcatraz in the first place. Now, Alcatraz these days, you can visit it. It was closed as a prison, about 20 or 30 years ago. And now it's open for visitors. And it really is a very interesting place to visit. I know I've been there, and it was, like I said, very interesting, a place I'd never want to be. Another one of those big beginning readers that I have found very fascinating. For some reason, kids like snakes. I don't care for snakes, but a lot of kids do. And this is a new beginning reader all about snakes. And as you can see, it tells you everything you could possibly want to know about snakes, including there's a page on flying snakes. Now, it's one thing to have snakes on the ground where you can see them and you can walk around them, but another thing to not know if there's going to be a snake flying over your head. Yuck. Anyway, in the back, it tells you the names of all the snakes that you will see in this book. So if you like snakes, this would be one you want to look at. Now, just about every year there is a new Junie B. Jones book that comes out, and I know most of you are familiar with Junie B. Jones. She's in kindergarten, and she is not a very good little girl. She's very independent, but this book is so funny. In this case, like I said, she's in kindergarten, and everybody in her class gets an invitation to Jen's birthday party except Junie B. Jones, because Junie B. doesn't like Jim, and so she's been mean to him all along, and they have this feud going. So when Jim passed out the birthday invitations, Junie B. Jones didn't get one. To give you an idea again of what Junie B. Jones is like, I want to read you this part because this is so funny. The whole book is funny, but this part I thought was particularly funny. Mrs. snapped her loud fingers at me. "Sit down," she hollered. Now, Mrs. is the name that Junie B. calls her kindergarten teacher. Just then, that Jim I hate turned around in his chair, and he laughed real mean at me because I was in trouble. "Turn around your fatty head," I said, only he didn't turn it around. So that's how come I had to run to his table, and I had to turn it around for him. "Junie B. Jones," shouted Mrs., "what are you doing?" "I'm turning around his fatty head," I explained. Mrs. hurried to where I was. Then she took my arm real quick, and she marched me into the hall. She pointed to the principal's office. "Go," she said, real angry. I did a gulp. "Yeah, only I'm not actually supposed to go there anymore," I said, "'cause me and Mother had a talk about it, and she said for me not to get sent there and again." Mrs.'s face got red as a tomato. She started counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's how come I hurried up and walked, because teachers who count numbers are the scariest kind there is. And it just goes on from there. Again, knowing how well you like mysteries, this is another real good one. Someone is following Pip Ramsey, and this is about a 9-year-old boy who's going to Maine with his family on a vacation. Now, his parents are into the antique business, so they're always stopping along at farms and places to look at road sales. And while they were there, Pip found an old Russian nesting doll. And these are the dolls that have like dolls inside of dolls. Okay, so he picked this up and he bought it for like $1. It was a real good deal. Well, after he bought it, then his family went on to the cottage that they had rented for the summer. It wasn't too far from this farm that he had gotten the nesting doll. Soon after that, Pip noticed that someone was following him, and he couldn't understand it. Why would somebody want to follow him? Certainly it wasn't because of the doll, because the doll had been in this family for generations and generations. If someone wanted to steal the doll, they surely should have done it before now. So why is somebody following Pip? Do you think I'm going to tell you? No. Okay, next one is Dragonling. I really like this book. It kind of reminded me of an E.T. type of story. This is about a boy named Derek, and he wants to go on a dragon quest, but he's not old enough. And one day, the villagers, including his older brother, come home from a dragon quest, and his brother has killed a great blue dragon. And Derek, of course, is so envious of his brother. Well, that night, he sneaks out to look at this dead big blue dragon when he hears a noise, and out of this dragon's pouch comes a little dragonling. And he's all alone because his mother is dead. And poor Derek feels so sorry for him. So he decides he's going to take it upon himself to take the dragonling back to the Valley of the Dragons, where some dragon will adopt him. So like I said, it's an E.T. story. Of course, Derek knew that if the dragonling was kept in his home, that it'd be killed, and he didn't want that to happen. So he has all kinds of adventures on the way, as you can see. Now, of course, what happens when he gets back to, gets the little dragonling back to the Valley of the Dragons? Again, I'm not going to tell you. It's a wonderful story. Okay, Dog to the Rescue. This is volume 2. This is 17 short, true stories of actual dog rescues. One of them really caught my attention. It was about a trucker who was driving through North Dakota when it was like 25 degrees below zero. We can remember those days, couldn't we? Well, thank goodness we didn't have to be out in them. Okay, this trucker, because of the weather, arrived at the place he was supposed to go real late at night, and he couldn't get anybody to help him unload the truck, so he had to do it by himself. And as he was doing this, he had an accident, and he got pinned underneath one of these huge tires. He knew that nobody was going to be around for another 8 hours, and that surely he would freeze to death. So he yelled and he made all kinds of racket. And fortunately for him, there were 2 dogs that lived across the street from where he delivered the tires, named Champ and Buddy. And they started barking when they heard the racket he was making. And they barked and they barked and they barked, even after their owner told them to be quiet. It was the middle of the night. So finally that owner got up, and the dogs raced over to where this guy was, and he was rescued thanks to these dogs. And there's 16 other very good true dog stories like that. Pony Promise. So many girls and boys too love horses, and this author does a wonderful job with her horse stories. This is about a girl named Tiffany, and she lives near a horse farm where there are 2 mares that are ready to foal. The first one is called Windy, and the other one is called Stormy. Now, Tiffany was really closer to Windy than what she was Stormy. In fact, Stormy is a descendant of the Misty of Chincoteague. Now, Stormy has her foal first, but for some strange reason, she refuses to nurse and take care of her foal, and everybody is so afraid that it will die. Then it's Windy's turn to foal, and they try to get Windy to take Stormy's foal also. Does it work? Doesn't it work? Of course, you're going to have to read it and find out. Another thing I like is what do you call historical fiction. This is stories about children who lived a long time ago. And this is the story. This one is a sequel of Next Spring an Oriole. Maybe some of you are familiar with that book. A wonderful book about a family that moves west to Michigan. That always cracks me up because, of course, living in Montana, Michigan is way to the east of where we are. But at one time, people were moving west to Michigan. And this is the story of a girl named Libby. And she has become really good friends with this Indian girl named Fawn. In fact, they are such good friends that Fawn's mother makes Libby an Indian dress, just like Fawn's. Well, Libby is visiting them one time when the army comes and tells the Indians that they must move to a reservation far away. And the Indians try to tell them that Libby is not an Indian, that she is a white girl, but the soldiers wouldn't even listen to him. And so Libby was taken with the Indians. How does she get home? What happens along the way? Again, you're going to have to read it to find out. Llama Pajamas is a lot of fun. This is about a 4th grade girl named Sarah, and her family is going on this vacation in the mountains, and they love to go camping. Well, this time Dad, who teaches 4th grade and is going to be Sarah's teacher next year, decides that they're going to use llamas to help them with their packing. Well, they have to learn how to get used to llamas in the wilderness, and that itself is funny. Then they meet a father and his son who are out camping, and the boy's name is Zeke, and he does everything wrong. Everything you're not supposed to do in the woods, Zeke does, like leaving a campfire going, not burying your garbage or taking it out with you. So what happens when Sarah tries to help Zeke? Again, funny tale, and one that I think you'd enjoy. Last year I had one of Gary Paulson's books, World of Adventure, one of his World of Adventure series on the tape, and I'm going to include another one this year because these are so good. They're just high action, they don't last long, but it's just one thing happening after another. And this is a story of a 13-year-old boy named Jesse who's working in the skydiving school. He can't actually skydive. You're not supposed to do that until you're 16, but he's doing everything he can so that when he is ready to skydive, he will be able to do it. Now, a girl by the name of Robin, who is still under age 2, has been enrolled by her father, who is very rich and wants Robin to overcome her fear of heights. And he thinks if she goes skydiving, this is going to do it. I think it'd scare her even more. So anyway, Robin is into photography. She really likes to photograph just everything and anything she can see. And she's out there and she's photographing these people coming off from this jet. And then after that happens, somebody tries to get a hold of her film. And then they are taken up in this airplane under a kind of a pretense, and they're told by the pilot that the plane is going to crash and they're going to have to jump out. Robin jumps out and her parachute isn't working. What happens? And why was this pilot trying to get rid of them? Of course, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to read it and find out. Again, going back to historical fiction, there is a new series out that's called the American Diary series, and I think it's a lot like the American Girl series. This one is about Sarah Ann Hartford, and she lives in Massachusetts in 1651. Now, this is only 31 years after the Pilgrims landed in Massachusetts. So, and if you know anything about that time period, these people were very, very strict. And when they went to church, like it starts out on a Sunday, Sarah Ann has been in church listening to the minister for hours and hours, and the kids have to sit perfectly still, and there's no heat in those churches. What the families do, they sat in like little boxes, and they brought a little hot pot, and that kind of kept them warm. But after a while, the best of kids got wiggly, and it was hard to do. So once Sarah and her friend got outside, they wanted to go home, but they didn't want to go straight home where they'd have to do more chores. They decided to go through the woods and make kind of a little adventure out of it. Now, Sarah didn't have a warm coat, so her friend's older brother Roger, lent Sarah his coat. Now, on the way home, they crossed a patch of ice, and they started laughing and skating on this ice. Now, after they were done and they got home, the town's fathers came to their house and to their friend's house, and they said that these girls were in big trouble and that they probably would be punished by being put in the pillory. Do you know what being put in the pillory meant? You know that you've seen pictures of these wooden things where you stick your arms and your head through? That was the pillory. And these kids had to be punished. Now, what were they punished for? Were they too wiggly in church? Why were they punished? When you read this book and find what they were punished for, you won't believe it. I mean, it's just absolutely stupid why they were punished, but this is the kind of thing that happened back in the time of the Pilgrims. Okay, let's get to something fun. Boys Against the Girls is the sequel to The Boys Start the Wars and the Girls Get Even by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. And I love these stories. Again, they are so funny. Okay, you have the Hatford boys who have lived in this West Virginia town forever. Into this town comes the Malloy girls. Now, there used to be a feud in West Virginia that was the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys. Okay, so get the gist here. We've got the Hatford boys and the Malloy girls. Okay, now these boys are constantly trying to do a one-upmanship on these girls, so they tell the girls about this mysterious creature called the Abaguchi, which is like our Bigfoot character here in the Northwest. Now, what happens when they scare these girls with the Abaguchi? Is there really an Abaguchi, and what is it? Of course, I'm not going to tell you, but if you want a good, fun adventure, I would recommend that. Another wonderful adventure, and again, we're going back to Gary Paulson, is called Mr. Tuckett. This is a story of a 14-year-old boy named Francis Tuckett, and his family is moving out west. And on the way, in this wagon train, Francis has his birthday, and his father gives him a new gun. Well, Francis is so taken with sighting in this gun and cleaning it and taking care of it that he doesn't realize that the wagon train has left him. And he gets captured by Indians, and he is taken to this Indian village, and he thinks, oh boy, I've had it. I'm never going to see my parents again. Well, into the village comes this trader named Mr. Grimes, and he only has one arm. And Mr. Grimes helps him escape. And now they are always, it seems like, just one step ahead of these Indians, and they have all kinds of adventures together. And of course, I'm not going to tell you what these adventures are. You're going to have to read the book and find out. I had a nice experience this summer. I met this author named Kevin, his last name is spelled B-O-O-S, Bose, and he lives in Boise, and he wrote a book about a boy named Ben who lives in Idaho, in the panhandle of Idaho. And this adventure takes place in the Hells Canyon area of Idaho. And what happens in this case is Ben is an only child. He goes camping a lot of times with his mom and his dad, and they have a wonderful time. All of a sudden, one day, his dad disappears. And of course, they're just distraught. They don't know what has happened to him, where he's gone, or anything. Then, in the course of time, Mom is killed in an automobile accident, so Ben's left alone. And then all of a sudden, Dad appears again. He says, let's go camping. Well, Ben's a little upset with his father, as you can imagine he would be. So they go off camping together, and Ben can't get his dad to tell him why he left or why he wants to stay in the mountains through the winter. Now, along the way, they meet a lot of people that know about the area. So you learn a lot about the area, but the question in the back of your head is, why did Ben's dad leave? Why is he trying to hide up in the mountains? And of course, I'm not going to tell you. Good book, and I'm happy that we found another good author. Okay, again, knowing how much you guys like mysteries, and I like mysteries too. I really do. There's a new series out that's called the Stevie Diamond Mysteries. Now, Stevie is a 12-year-old girl, and her real name is Stephanie. Okay, she has a real good friend named Jessie. And it's summertime. Both of their parents work, so they have to find somebody to take care of. Her mother has to find somebody to take care of them. Or she says they can go to the Happy Rabbits summer camp, which is like down the block a little ways. Now, all of the kids at this Happy Rabbit summer camp are like 6 and 7 years old, and they wear little rabbit's ears, and it is just disgusting to a 12-year-old girl and boy. So they don't want to go there. So they talk their mothers into letting this elderly lady named Gertie take care of them. Now, Gertie used to be an actress, and she is studying for this important part in this play. And so she says it's no problem for them for her to take care of them. In fact, the kids can help her learn her lines to the play. One day, Gertie disappears. Now, of course, the two kids, first of all, want to find Gertie because she's a good friend. Secondly, they don't want to go to the Happy Rabbit Summer Club. Camp. So, what are they going to do? Where has Gertie gone? There's a lady that comes in and takes care of the flowers in Gertie's house, and she says, oh, Gertie had to go away on a vacation, and so don't worry about her, she'll be back. Well, this doesn't make sense. And then a guy that lives down the hallway from Gertie shows up with a jacket that belonged to Elvis Presley, and Gertie got it because she was in one of his movies and Elvis gave it to her. Well, what does this guy know about Gertie? I mean, why is he wearing this jacket? Gertie never would have given it to him if she had been alive. So what's going on here? I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to read it and find out. Sports. I know you like sports, and so do I. This is a great book because I don't know how many sports characters there are in this book, but there is a bunch. And they're not only football and basketball players, but they're also like hockey players and gymnasts and all kinds of wonderful people. My favorite person is Jerry Rice. You know, they're talking about the fact that Jerry Rice might go down as the best football player ever. He has just broken all kinds of records, and he has no plans of quitting. But the thing that I like about Jerry Rice best is that he has this wonderful work ethic. Even though he is immensely talented, he works. And like they say that he's a wide receiver. Everybody knows he's a wide receiver. Okay, so even when he is not going to be receiving the ball, he still blocks for his quarterback. He's that kind of a guy. Now, maybe this is something that there's two facts that this book brings out. One of them is that Jerry's father was a bricklayer, and Jerry and his older brothers had to help him summers. And so what Jerry would do, he'd get up like on the second floor of this building, and his brothers would throw bricks up at him to keep on building this house, and often they would throw more than one brick at a time. So Jerry had to become really good at catching these bricks, otherwise he'd get hit in the head. Okay, now another story that I think is great. When Jerry was in high school, he didn't go out for football. He had no interest in it. And one time he was playing hooky. He was out in the hall when he was supposed to be in class. And the principal came down the hall, and he saw Jerry Rice standing in the hall. Well, of course, as soon as Jerry saw the principal, he knew he was in trouble. So he took off running, and the principal tried to catch him. And he couldn't catch him. So when the principal finally did get Jerry Rice in his office, he says, you have a choice. I'm going to give you a choice. Either you get detention or you go out for football. The rest is history, isn't it? So a lot of neat things in that book, and I'll have a lot of other sports books for you to look at too. Nobody's Daughter, another really good historical fiction. This takes place around the turn of the century. It's about a little girl named Emily. Emily's dad disappeared when she was really young. Her mother died when she was like 3 years old, so she was living with a great aunt. And then when great aunt died, Emily had nowhere to go, and so she was sent to live in this orphan home for girls. And she was told that she was lucky to be there because if she went to the city orphanage, it was really terrible. Well, she became friends with two of the other orphan girls, and they were really close. But when they would go to school, the regular public school, they were taunted just unmercifully by girls that lived in town. And the problem of it is that these orphan girls couldn't report on these city girls because these city girls' fathers were very important in the community, and they contributed to the orphanage. So these orphan girls were really caught between a rock and a hard place, as we say. Now, something terrible happened to one of these orphan girls. At the same time, Emily is trying to find a younger sister that was put up for adoption when the sister was born because mother knew that she couldn't take care of her at that time. So there's a lot of things that happen. Of course, I'm not going to tell you what the horrid thing was or what happens when Emily finds her sister. You're going to have to read it and find out. Very good book. Okay. Again, knowing how much you like mysteries, this one is just super. It starts out the same way almost as that skydive that I showed you. This is a story of a boy named Sam who lives in the East Coast with his mother and his stepfather. His real father lives in Oklahoma and has remarried to a woman who has a son that's almost Sam's age, and his name is Gary. So, of course, Dad wants Sam to come out and visit him in the summer. Now, Sam's father is into photography and sent Sam a really neat camera for Christmas. Okay, now it's summertime, and Sam has got to go out and see Dad, and of course, Dad is going to ask about the camera and what pictures he's taken. So Sam, being desperate, when he's in the airport, takes a picture picture of a plane that's out on the runway, and there's some people standing by the plane. Does it sound familiar? That's where all similarity ends, kind of. Okay, so Sam gets on the plane, goes out to Oklahoma, meets his new stepmother and this stepbrother named Gary, who he thinks is a hick, and they're stuck together for the summer. Well, then people start inquiring about the film and the pictures that Sam has taken. In fact, 3 thugs, just awful guys, show up at Sam's dad's new house, and they want that film. Now, Sam and Gary escape, and they know they've got to get help. Otherwise, Sam's father and stepmother will be killed. It is a page-turner. You do not put this down because it's just one thing happening after another. They're just one step away from these guys. I'm not going to tell you anymore. You've got to read it. It's great. Okay. Another good book, and this one, again, is by that Newbery Award-winning author, Reynolds Naylor. Fear Place is about a boy named Doug and his older brother, Gertie. They go camping in the Colorado Rockies with their parents. Now, Doug and Gertie, they're like 12 and 14 years old, and they are at the age where they cannot get along for anything. They're constantly fighting. On the first day, they take a hike, and Doug has been at this place before where there's a very narrow ledge over this steep drop, and Gertie just goes over it with no trouble at all. But Doug has a real fear of heights, and he just freezes. And of course, Gertie just teases him unmercifully. Now, the family gets back to their camp, and the parents find out that there's been a family emergency, and so they need to leave. And they say they're only going to be gone for 3 days, and the boys convince them that they can take care of themselves, so Doug and Gertie are left in the wilderness together. Now, that's fine, except they get in a fight after the parents have been gone only for about 2 hours, and Gertie stalks off. Well, Doug figures he's going to be back. I'm not going to worry about him. Well, a night goes by, another night goes by, Gertie doesn't come back. And Doug knows that he has been hurt, and he has got to find his brother. And to do so, he knew that Gertie would go over this high mountain ledge. So, how does he get by it? And what part does this mountain lion play in this story? It's really neat. So again, another great adventure story. Something that is based on truth is this book called Torn Away, and I really, really like this. This is about a boy who's about 14 years old. His name is Declan. He lives in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And if you know anything about Belfast, Northern Ireland, you know that the Catholics are fighting against the Protestants, the Prods, as Declan calls them. And the Prods are supported by the British government. Now, Declan is Catholic. When he was 3, his father was killed by the Prods. Okay, this is what he's been told. Now, he's 14 years old. His younger sister and his mother went to celebrate his younger sister's birthday at a restaurant when a bomb goes off, killing both mother and the sister. Now, he is just beside himself. He is so mad at the Prods. So he joins this group, this gang of Catholic teenagers that do anything and everything they can against the Prods and the British government. Well, he is caught, and he is sent to live with an uncle and his aunt and 2 small kids that are living in Vancouver, British Columbia. And of course, he doesn't want to have anything to do with them. He doesn't want to stay. He tries to escape, and finally, he's caught, and he's returned to his uncle, and his uncle makes a deal with him. If you stay through Christmas, it's fall, if you stay through Christmas and you still want to go home, you are back to Belfast, you can, but give us a chance. Well, Declan agrees to do it because he knows that it's going to be almost impossible for him to get home on his own. So what happens in this story? Again, a great adventure story, and really a worthwhile read. Another one that I really like, this is an excellent author, is Cat Running. This is about a girl named Catherine who's in 6th grade. It takes place in California during the Depression. If you remember, that was during the 30s when nobody had any money. And at that time, there was no rain in the middle of our country, so people like from Oklahoma, their farms were drying up, and the wind would come in and it took the topsoil off the land, and that's why it was called the Dust Bowl. A lot of those people from Oklahoma were called Okies, and they packed their few belongings up, and they moved to California where life was supposed to be better. So into this picture comes the Okies from Oklahoma, including a 6th grade boy named Zeke Perkins. Now, Cat has always been known as the fastest runner in the school. and she's always won every contest. Now in 6th grade, there is a very, very special contest, and Kat wants to win it. But she wants to wear long pants because it's a much easier to run in long pants, she feels, than it is a dress. But her father is old-fashioned and says that she can't wear pants. She has got to just stick to a dress. And Kat refuses to wear a dress if she's going to run. So she says she's not going to run. Okay, so Zeke comes into the picture. He's a very good runner. And now the kids are saying, you're not going to run because Zeke is here and he's going to beat you. Of course, the town people do not want their kids to have anything to do with these Okies, but Kat, being very independent, meets Zeke's younger sister. And what happens? Great book, one I highly recommend. Okay. A lot of you that are in 6th or 7th grade have read like Face on the Milk Carton and Whatever Happened to Janie. Let me tell you, there is a sequel, a 3rd book coming out that's called Voice on the Radio, and it is excellent. It's in hardcover only, but it's coming out this fall. And Janie's boyfriend, Reeve, goes to college, and he's just not fitting in, and he decides to try being a DJ on the radio. Well, at first he just bombs, and then he starts telling his audience bits and pieces of Janie's story, and he knows that he's betraying Janie's trust. But he figures, Janie lives far away. She's never going to find out about this. That's all I'm going to tell you. It is a page-turner, too. Okay, in the same kind of vein as that, we have this book that's called Twice Taken. And this is about a girl whose name is Brooke, and she's living with her father. Brooke is probably about 13, 14 years old, and her father told her that her mother died, and that's why they're living alone together. Now, they change locations quite often. They never have a lot of money because Dad just keeps on changing jobs. One day, Brooke is babysitting these 2 kids, and she has a television on when she sees this missing persons program. And on the television comes this picture of a man with his younger daughter, and she recognizes the man as her father, and she knows the girl has got to be her. So that means that Dad has taken her. So she calls the 800 number, and of course they get in touch with her mother, and her mother has always known her as Amy. So what happens? Again, a page turner. If you like the Whatever Happened to Janie and Face on the Milk Carton, you're really going to like that. This is an advanced copy of a book that's coming out this fall. It'll have a neat cover on it called The Window. This is done by a Missoula author named Jeanette Ingold, and it is a fantastic book. This is about a girl named Mandy who is living alone with her mother when her mother and her are in a terrible automobile accident that kills her mother, and Mandy loses her sight. Now, there's no other living relatives as far as Mandy knows, but a caseworker does discover some distant relatives, well, not so distant, like great aunts and uncles that are living on a farm in Texas. So she is sent to live with these people, and she decides instead of going to a special school for the blind, she's going to go to the regular public high school. And what happens to her as she is sitting in this room that had at one time belonged to her her grandmother, she sits at the window because it's really hot, and she hears voices, and even though she can't actually see them, she sees things that had happened at that farm a long time ago, and tells. As these things come out, she learns more and more about her family. And of course, I'm not going to tell you any more about it, but I really think that this is a Newbery Award-winning contender. And a good friend of mine who does the Young Reader's Choice book, so you know she reads a lot of books, feels the same way I do about this book. So it's going to be hard to wait and see how well this book does, but it is a great one. Okay, how many of you remember the Bingo Brown stories by Betsy Byers? They're so much fun. Bingo Brown was like in 7th or 8th grade. Well, this is much the same kind of a book. We have a boy named Jonah who is going into 7th grade. And when you go into 7th grade, you really want to be cool. You don't want to do anything that appears stupid because kids will just really rag on you. Well, Jonah has to earn some money, and a girl that lives down the block needs Jonah's help to put on birthday parties, help with birthday parties. And Jonah really doesn't want to do this, but he needs the money, so he decides to do it. But he thinks if anybody finds out what he's doing, he is just going to get razzed to beat the band. And then, to make matters worse, his mother, who is divorced from his father, starts dating the principal. Now, what do you think kids are going to say when they find out that Jonah's mother's dating the principal? This kid's got all kinds of problems, but it is a lot of fun and one that you can really enjoy. Last Safe Place on Earth is the new one in paperback by Richard Peck, and I really, really like this. It's a story of a boy named Todd, and his family have moved when he was in junior high to this new community called Walden Woods, and they live on Tranquility Lane. Now, the reason that the folks picked this is because it has a good school system, no crime supposedly happens there, but then things start creeping up. Like they have censorship in the schools. There's a group of people that want to censor the books that are in the schools. Like one lady says that she doesn't like the kids reading The Diary of Anne Frank because it is an alternative religion. I mean, you get crazy stuff like that. Then there is vandalism, and there is car theft, and there is AIDS awareness. There's a lot of things going on. But one thing about Richard Peck that he does, he makes the reading so much fun. I have to read you a couple sentences on this first page so that you can see the humor that Richard Peck puts into his books. He says, this is Todd speaking, "I'm seeing girls everywhere I look, some of them real, most not. I see girls in the shapes the tree trunks make and in the formations of the clouds. I see a lot of girls this fall. I'm not obsessed. I'm in 10th grade." I love that line. Okay. Sarah on Her Own. Great piece of historical fiction, takes place in Virginia in 1620. So this is the same time the Pilgrims were landing up in Plymouth Rock, and about 13 years after the colony of Jamestown was founded. Now, Sarah is from England. She has lost both parents, and she's coming to the New World not because she wants to, but her only living relative, an aunt who she's very close to, is betrothed to a man that is working in Virginia. And so she is kind of stuck going there. Now, on the way over, her aunt dies. So she gets to this colony, and there's nobody there for her. And then she finds out, she thinks, well, maybe the guy that her aunt was betrothed to could send her back to England. Well, she finds out that he has died. People in those colonies just died like fleas, like flies. I don't understand what the attraction was, except that life in England wasn't too good. So Sarah wants to go back, but she has to earn some money to get there. Nobody in the colonies or at that time had any money. Now, when you go there as a young unmarried girl, you had two choices. You either get married right away. Sarah's only 14. She didn't want to get married. Or you become an indentured servant. She really didn't want to do that too, but she didn't have a lot of choices. So what happens to her? Again, based on truth, so you'll learn a lot at the same time. Great story. Okay, Carolyn B. Cooney is just such a great, great author. Like I said, she's got Voice on the Radio coming out, but she also has this new book that is called Flash Fire. And maybe some of you were involved in some of the firefighting this summer, so you know what it's like. This takes place in Pinch Canyon, which is located near Los Angeles. And there's been fires in the area, and in Pinch Canyon, you might guess that it's a small, narrow canyon. There's only about 4 or 5 families living there, and they have a number of the families have like teenagers living there, and all the parents are off working, leaving their kids at home. Now, this book takes place, the time period is only an hour and a half, and you have maybe about 5 main characters, teenagers in this story. And so they're flashing back from one teenager to another as this fire moves up into that valley. Who makes it out and who doesn't? Again, this is a page turner. This is kind of like her book, Flight 116 Was Down, where you've got a number of characters in it. You just can't put it down because you've got to find out who survives and who doesn't and what the storyline is behind each one of them. A great read, and again, one you can't put down. Okay, going back to historical fiction, Catherine Lasky has this book, Beyond the Burning Time, out in paperback now, and this takes place during the Salem witch trials in 1692. Now, remember the book Sarah Ann Hartford, where these people I said had some weird ideas? Boy, they sure did during these Salem witch trials. You couldn't believe the things that happened. Now, what the author does, Catherine Lasky, she gives you a very accurate account of what happens, but she puts this fictitious family into this picture. The father has died, and a mother is taking care of the farm, and she's doing a very good job of it. And she has 2 children named Mary and Caleb. Mother is arrested for witchcraft, and she is going to be burned at the stake, and it is up to Mary and Caleb to rescue her. Can they do it? What happens? Of course, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to find out. California Blue, a modern-day story about a boy named John who lives in Northern California in a lumbering community. And he's the youngest child in this family. Father and his older brothers have been these wonderful football heroes, but John doesn't like football and he's not built for it. And so he becomes a runner. And as he's practicing his running, he's going through the company land when he notices this blue butterfly, and he sees other blue butterflies in this one area. And so he stops and he gets a specimen. Well, he first goes home and gets a jar to get a specimen of one of these butterflies, and he's really into science. So he brings it into his biology teacher, who can't recognize it, and so she calls her professor from Berkeley, which is down by by San Francisco. The professor comes up and says that this is a rare kind of butterfly, and that his habitat needs to be protected on company land that's owned by a lumbering company. Get real. So you have a real conflict developing here between the environmentalists and this lumbering company. What happens? I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to read it. Last on the list, and this is one of my favorites this year, is the story My Brother, My Sister, and I. This is this true story of a lady named Yoko when she was only about 12 years old. What happens, this takes place just after World War II. During World War II, Father, who was a diplomat, was sent from Japan to Korea to work as a diplomat in Korea. And they lived out the war years there. And for the most part, Yoko's life had been very easy. She was the youngest of 3 children. And in fact, she was kind of spoiled, to be perfectly honest. Well, Dad is off in China when the war ends. And then Korea is taken over by the communists, and Yoko and her brother and sister and mother have to get back to Japan because they don't want to live under communist rule. So they get back to Japan. Because they're refugees, they have nothing. They're forced to live in this old warehouse. In the meantime, before they get to this warehouse, Mother dies. She just is heartbroken. She's just worn out. And so it's up to these 3 kids to survive. Now, the warehouse burns down, and the people that own the warehouse that live across the street are killed, and Yoko's older brother is accused of the murder. The same time when the fire happened in the warehouse, her older sister went in to retrieve something and was badly burned and injured, so she's in the hospital. I mean, all kinds of horrific things happen, and yet they're bound and determined, both the older brother and sister, that Yoko get an education. And again, just like in the story of Emily, Yoko is taunted when she goes to school because she doesn't have anything. She uses scrap paper out of the waste paper baskets to use for her own paper because she has absolutely nothing. And of course, all this time they're trying to find their father. They're sending out inquiries to find their father. So what happens? An excellent novel. And if you look at the back, you can see that it's won all kinds of awards. It's just a great book. Okay. Into your book fair, you're going to see also joke books. You will see movie tie-ins like Matilda and other ones. You will see what we call, these are also referred to as picture books, but there'll be things like on dinosaurs and animals, and of course the Berenstain Bears are there. You will see series books like the Babysitter's Club and the Boxcar Children, and there will be others there. You'll see books by good authors that I think are just tremendous, like books by Lynn Reed Banks and Mary Downing Hahn and Will Hobbs, who I just think is the greatest. And like I said, you will see sports books. Here's another one on that crazy Shaquille O'Neal and Steve Young, who again, you might have guessed I'm kind of a San Francisco 49er fan, so I really like this book too. And then of course there's going to be activity books like tracing books, and we've got like these more geometrics and drawing books. There's going to be all kinds of things for you. So hopefully you've got some ideas of what you would like to get at your book fair, and I hope you have a good time because reading is fun. I can't imagine being without a book. So enjoy. Thanks. Bye-bye.